participate. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about the myopia in numbers. All of us are optometrists, so I'm not going to explain to you what is myopia. Just to highlight a little bit the increasing the increment of the prevalence of myopia during the years. So studies, like huge studies in 84. In 10 years, there is a significant increase in the prevalence of myopia. I don't know if you can see this in the graph. I see that there are some people who are like writing in the screen or something. Yeah.
Everything clear now.
Yeah, but I'm trying to pass the next slide and I can't.
Let's see.
آيات معايا?
Yeah. I'm looking for it actually.
Okay.
Let's see. Still having the same issue, yeah?
Yeah. Okay. Now apparently I could move for the next step.
So that's
can you see the study in 1996, the prevalence of myopia?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. So starting from here, studies like about myopia prevalence worldwide indicated that since 2000 and since 2000 there are I'm talking about adults now, it's about 22% worldwide, which apparently we're going to increase to 52% by 2050. And we had the 2020 magnificent year of 33% prevalence of myopia. So this is actually the optometrist pandemic, which is not the COVID, but it's a real issue now nowadays. A study done in Saudi Arabia indicated a prevalence of almost 48%. I can't pass the screen. I don't know what the problem is. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Doctora, if you can just reshare the screen, it might be okay.
Okay. I will do this. I will do that. Just give me a second. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, it's clear now, doctor.
Okay, now it's clear, but I'm still unable to pass the other one. Seriously. Okay, let me just make it simpler. I will stop sharing the screen, but I will continue speaking if possible. So the studies about the prevalence were really interesting because in Saudi Arabia, there are so many published work about the prevalence of myopia. But studies like published in 2020 were actually done between 18 and 19, or between 2017 and 2018. So you have to be careful when you look for the studies to make your conclusions. Okay, just give me a second. I'm trying to put the PDF just to take all the problems away, and I'm unable to do that.
Okay.
Okay, can you see now?
Not yet, actually. It's not showing anything yet. Until Dr. Hanan, she found the PDF files. I just want to mention أنا إن شاء الله راح نرسل الآن رابط عن طريق الشات بإذن الله من خلاله يمكنكم التسجيل عليه لإمكانية تسجيل الساعات في الهيئة. بس حبيت يا ليت بس تشوفونه في الشات إحنا الآن راح يتم إرساله ونرجو من الجميع التسجيل. يعطيكم العافية.
ممتاز. آيات يمديكم تشوفون الشاشة الآن؟
Yes, it's clear now.
Perfect. Perfect. So can you see the red flag with the 48.7% of MAOPS in KSA?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So this study actually was done between December 2018 and January 2019, and it showed that we have almost 50% of MAOPS, adult MAOPS, in KSA. This study was published in 2020. So what people were expecting in globally speaking was 33% prevalence, and in Saudi Arabia we have more than that. So let's talk KSA's children. Because this study was done using adults. Okay, so I've done small research just to come into the PubMed. I saw since 2010 in Riyadh, 13 in Ahsa, 14 by our dear Professor Al-Dibasi in Qasim. So many published work, and I just took the age range of people in school until high school. So if I with these publications, putting the numbers in by years of when they took when they took over the study, I saw that, for example, in the capital in 2010, we had school children, school aged, like in primary school children, we had 2.5% MAOPS. In 10 years, this study, I mean, you can take into account the number of sample and how did they do the study, blah, 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 blah. I mean, there are so many factors, but the prevalence is 14.1. So even if there are so many external factors affecting this difference from 2.5 until 14.1, it's not going to be only due to how they managed to do the studies, the methodology. In الشرقية and الأحسا in 2012, they found 9% of the children in primary school who were myope. In Al-Qasim, this study by Dr. Al-Dibasi, 5.8. In Al-Medina, by 2017, it was 1.3. In Jizan, in 2018, it was 17.2. And surprisingly, in Jizan, this was something that I was really impressed by, to see that in Jizan the prevalence of hyperopia was the highest among diffractive errors in comparison to astigmatism and myopia. This is something that I think that, well, if among the people who are listening to this lecture, people who are working there or they have contact with optometrists working there, they can give us their feedback in practice, because I think that some of the factors, I mean, it doesn't count up this fact. So I think that it's interesting to have some feedback from the people who are working physically in this area of Saudi Arabia. All these studies, the last ones were done by 2019, and as all of us know, what happened is the famous lovely year of 2020. And with the COVID-19, we had so many restrictions, the confinement, the lockdown. There is a before and after in our lives in general due to the COVID, and specifically regarding the ocular development, our ocular health. No, because to be honest, when I was in 2020, I was recently arriving to Saudi Arabia, and I was not practicing optometry in clinics. But I have so many friends who had their clinics shut down. Like, for example, I have some very dear friends, very professional ones in pediatrics in Al Haras, in National Guard, and they had to close their clinics. So there was no follow-ups. So due to COVID, what happened is that we had the lockdown, the studies, it was all online. Now, apparently, things are getting better. But since, let's say, September in 2020, there were like more than 180 countrywide closure of educational institutions. What does this imply? The closure of schools or universities, this is like almost 80% of the global students in the world. 1 billion learner. We are in the whole Mother Earth, we are like 7 billion. And this is one of these billions who had this drastic change, disruptive, as per the UNESCO studies I found. And what happens, or what happened due to the lockdown? These two images are the most common ones we saw, or we continue to see in children at homes. If you are parents, if you have cousins or nieces or nephews, this is the image we can see in every house, independently of the level of education or of whatever they are doing. All the children are attached to the screens, attached to the near work, attached to their video games or the schools online, and all these things. And here I would like to stop just for one minute and ask you guys, as optometrists, practitioners, if you noticed any changes in your practice, if you are attending a young population, in terms of your practice, the day-to-day practice, before and after the COVID. Can you please give me just a small feedback or a small opinion if you have noticed any differences? Okay, so I'll continue. So there have been so many concerns, especially what I noticed when I surfed the internet is that studies were curiously done by the Chinese. Well, I think that if you guys did some research, you would notice by the publications and so on that the Chinese population, since there are so many, they have the funds and so on. They have these huge studies, cross-sectional studies. So there were so many concerns about the COVID. I just put these 4 publications because they were a little bit funny for me, because it was like COVID, sweat, tears, and myopia, like managing the myopia epidemic and the digital eye strain. Will COVID pandemic associated lockdown increase myopia in Indian children? It was like all doubts, and all of these publications were open, like speculative studies. People were thinking about their areas. These are people who are ophthalmologists or optometrists, and they were concerned about the lockdown, the online study, the studying, and so on. So they reported their worries, and this highlighted the importance about the background, the cause, what is visual development, and what are the factors that affect the visual development. And here is the eternal question about the genetics and epigenetics. And what I mean by genetics and epigenetics is that we know as optometrists is that if we have parents, myope parents, we have a higher chance of having children with myopia, for example. But is this the most important thing? Because why is the prevalence of myopia increasing drastically, and why there are concerns? Does COVID change our DNA in terms of myopia? Because I know that in some studies done by European projects, they have like 60 genes related to myopia. But as you may know, DNA doesn't change. Okay, so the epigenetics is the nurture, it's not the nature. And the only thing which does change with the visual development during the time is the nature, is the nurture, pardon, is the epigenetics. So ethnicity is something that we cannot change. If you come from Black parents, or Asian, or Indian, or from Malaysia, you have a higher probability of getting myopia. If you are a children of myopic parents, you have almost 8 times higher risk compared to non-myopic parents. The peripheral refraction, all of us perhaps know that myopic children have greater relative hyperopia in the periphery. The gender is something I wouldn't call genetics, because all studies indicates a whole different story about myopia in comparison with the actual in 2022, because male had higher myopia prevalence than female, but now things are exactly the opposite. In terms of nurture, the near work, the light exposure, and the level of education is gaining lots and lots of attraction by the investigators. And actually, there have been made some very interesting studies where they try to correlate the studies, the level of education with the genetical risk of getting a refractive error. And they saw that if you have even if you have a low genetic risk of developing myopia, but you have a higher education, you will develop myopia. And this have nothing to do with our DNA. Light exposure doesn't have to do anything with our DNA. What epigenetic actually, like in plain simple science language, is that if we have these two strains of DNA, we have some things which controls the expression of the genes. So we have the genes. If my dad is a diabetic person, I have the genes to develop diabetes, but the epigenetics is the controllers which allow these things to be expressed like on and offs. Okay, so there are scientifically proven methods like hypermethylation, or some basic science stuff that conclude that, okay, near work, light exposure, cognitive functions, they can make our genes take off or on expressions. So you can have them, but it doesn't mean that you will have the symptoms, or you will have, because if you have myope parents and you are one of 10 children, not all your brothers and sisters are myopes, you know, and this is where epigenetics plays a great role. So with the pandemic, what happened is that we got into an endless spiral. So we had this stay at home, don't leave home. All of the activities were indoor. The tasks for children were mostly near work tasks. I don't know if you are familiar with the concept of dioptric hour. So dioptric hour, there is a calculation which indicates that it's not the same if a child is doing 2 hours learning through the mobile or the TV, because the distance is different, okay? There is lots and lots of sleep disturbances, and this is like, it's the most adequate thing to mention during Ramadan, because we are in Umsiyat Ramadan and it's almost midnight and we are almost starting our day. We have the sedentary behavior. We are stuck to the sofa and we are stuck to the Netflix and we are stuck to doing nothing. And then the myopia pandemic. There are several aspects, and one of these things you can see, since I am sharing the PDF, so I am not able to move the screen, but I just wanted to highlight the dopamine theory and the sleep disturbances. So regarding the dopamine theory, the dopamine is a neurotransmitter. Okay, it's one of these neurotransmitters called catecholamines. It's one of these very important neurotransmitter in the brain. It have to do any disturbances of these levels of dopamine in the brain. It have to do with the Parkinson's disease, with the schizophrenia, attention deficit, hyperactivity, and all the tumors generated by the pituitary gland in the brain. But what is very interesting for in terms of myopia is that dopamine is very present in our eyes. So these photos are a little bit Chinese for optometrists, to be honest. But there is a professor called Nicolas Cuenca. This Nicolas Cuenca is someone who studies retina. And he studies the expression of so many neurotransmitters in the retina. So he took these retinas of these animals, you can see in the upper side, both in right hand and left, all these green stainings are the amacrine cells. So he took these animals, the white bass, which is the fish, and the el-sinjab. El-sinjab is one of the most studied animals in terms of visual development because it's a mammal. It shares like 99% of the DNA with humans. So in the upper side of the screen, you can see the retina. He took the retinas of the animal, enucleated the eye. He put the retina, and he made these experiments. And in the confocal microscopy, he saw the stained cells are the amacrine cells, which express dopamine. Okay, in the lower side, because in the fish it's a little bit interesting, but in the fish it's easier. It's way easier to do some experiments to study the eye, because they have proportionally speaking, the size of the eye is considerably big. So he took these two eyes and he did horizontal sections, and he saw that the amacrine cells, they express dopamine. So if you remember the amacrine cells with the 10 layers of cells in the retina, you will notice that these are the ones just above the ganglion cells. So our eyes, they release dopamine, and this dopamine, there are the hypothesis about the dopamine in the visual development is that this dopamine antagonizes myopia. And this, what do I mean by antagonize myopia? It tries to stop the development of myopia in terms of the axial length, okay? Because it sends signals to the brain saying, okay, there is enough light now. Please don't make the eye bigger. It's as simple as that, okay? But then also light stimulates dopamine, and the stimulation of dopamine means that I will antagonize myopia development, because apparently darkness, it doesn't come in handy for the myopia development. And here, what happens with our rods and cones is that during the day, we have the rods and cones, we have the gap junctions, we have the horizontal cells, and then the amacrine cells, and then it goes, all the signals, they go to the ganglion cells, and all of this goes to our brain. So if I have the amacrine cells, which synthesize, it makes and fabricate dopamine, I have also the horizontal cells, which have receptors to function with the dopamine. So during the subjective day, there are loads and loads and loads of dopamine, and this dopamine goes to the brain, to another place, not the visual cortex, and it says, okay, stop it for now, don't develop even more. Okay, I'm talking about the axial length. And then what happens during the night is that the gap junction between the rods and cones, because we know that the rods are the ones responsible for night vision, they say, okay, now you can function. We are now very good friends among each other, the rods and cones, and just go ahead and do what you have to do. So how does these cells know that this is, now we have the light, and it's you have to do to make more dopamine? There is another neurohormone called melatonin, okay, which regulates the circadian rhythm. So melatonin is a neurohormone actually principally, and people thought like 20 years ago that this neurohormone is only synthesized by the pineal gland. But then, obviously speaking, our eyes are the only window and the first window to tell us about the time of the day. So we have the retina, the ciliary body, the lacrimal gland, the crystalline lens, the ciliary, the cornea even. It synthesizes melatonin. But the principal function of melatonin is to regulate the circadian rhythm. Okay, so when during the night, even if we are now almost midnight and we are having these lights and attending this presentation, our levels of melatonin are higher than the levels of melatonin during the day. I'm talking in terms of in blood, in aqueous humor, in all of our cells of the body. Because what happens is that when light comes into our eyes, there is an intrinsically photosensitive pigment called melanopsin in the retina. Okay, this photopigment is activated specifically by the blue range of light. It sends signals to the suprachiasmatic nucleus where our clock system. Okay, and then it sends other signals like to the olivary pretectal nucleus for the pupillary light reflex, but mainly it goes to the pineal gland and it says, okay, now we are during the day, please don't fabricate this melatonin. And in terms of biochemistry, which doesn't interest you a lot in this at this point, it's just to tell you that you have this membrane of any cell, of the ganglion cell in our retina. You have the receptor of melatonin. So when light hits the eye, it activates an intracellular mechanisms and pathways to suppress the melatonin synthesis. Okay. So why is this important with all what I was saying about the COVID and all these things? The environmental light levels. If you can see, I think that this is a very clear image about the light intensity in this world we are living. And if we can put the light in like scotopic, mesopic, and photopic vision, where photopic vision is where melanopsin is going to be activated, because although it's sensitive to the blue light, but we know that nowadays LED lights are the most common in offices and in the school and all these things. But if you can just have a look in the office, I don't know if what I'm trying to do with my mouse, you can see it or not, but in office we have from 300 to 400 lux light intensity. So we are in the margin of the photopic light, where we can be even only near the window, not even outside, 3,000 lux. So there is one order of magnitude more. Or even in the shade of the outdoors, we have 10,000 lux. So there is a huge difference in light intensity of someone who is always in the office or in his room with the dim light, which the dim light doesn't even consider photopic light. So a child who's in his room with no lights, only the screen light is almost living in a mesopic situation, compared to someone who is near the window or someone who is outside in the shades. I'm not talking about Saudi Arabia with 50 degrees and the UV light and all the risks we have. But this is something to, I mean, it impacted me personally to see the differences of light intensity of the normal ones, the sunlight, in comparison to the urban inside light we have. So this made me very curious to see the things regarding the COVID, whether they did some things, and I discovered so many interesting studies that I want to share with you. And one of the first one I saw was done in September 2021, and it was about the rates of myopia development, obviously in young Chinese. I only took and was concerned about the young children in general, because the moment you pass to adults, the prevalence is way higher, different. There are so many factors. So I was concerned about the educational range, of studies. Most of these studies, I'm going just to show you, they considered myopia starting from the spherical equivalent greater than -50. And they took these people, almost 3,000 students, and they studied them between November and December of 2020 and November and December of 2019. And they saw that, for example, in the case of severe myopia, which is not severe, but more than -1.8 diopter, there was almost double the percentage of people with high myopia in 2020 in comparison to these people. They graduated and they refracted in December 2019. So it was from 3.6 to 5.4. This is a very high indicative about the importance or the impact of the lockdown or the COVID, or I don't know the politically correct word to call it, but I think that it's the pandemic in general that had in the myopia pandemic worldwide. Another study was the progression of myopia in school-age children after the COVID. So these people, I tried to take the studies which I can relate to, like compare to, to see, to just get to a small conclusion, because this is something huge, and I just wanted this to be an interactive lecture, light one. So in this study, they took people in 2020. They did photo screening, and they compared them to people with myopia graduated or refracted between 2015 and 2019. And the differences were, for example, in people who are 80 years old, were 37% versus in 2020 versus 27%. There's like 10% increment of myopia prevalence in 2020 in comparison to the years before, let's say the 5 years before. which is very significant. Another very, very interesting study. This study was huge, also done in China. They took almost 1 million students from 1,800 schools in China. It was a multi-center study, and since they had like a huge number, they had to adjust and exclude so many people. They had 2 visits and grades, the pre-COVID and the post-COVID, and at the end, from 1 million something, the students who completed the survey and the study were like 800,000 students, and they compared the percentage of myopia pre-COVID and post-COVID, in terms of also asking these students and their parents about the outdoor activity, because there is I mean, it's not very clear. Some people, they say, no, the COVID and the progression of myopia is due to near work activity, and it's not due to the outdoor decrease of the hours. But there are some other people who are saying no, it's due to both, and more importantly is the sunlight. So these people, they tried to measure all the factors, and apparently the post-COVID effect was, as you can see in the right side, this is the percentage of the outside activity of people pre and post-COVID. So this was statistically significant, and the progression of myopia and the incidence of myopia was even higher in these children during the lockdown. Another study was a little bit smaller, but very significant, because I saw this number in several studies actually, and the incident or the prevalence of myopia during the quarantine was 3 times greater than the baseline. So these people, they started to investigate the myopia and myopia progression before even the pandemic, and they continued through, and they saw the changes. So lucky for them, they had the baseline numbers. So this is a little bit of what I found in the literature. And even regarding the axial length, not only the dioptric power, the elongation of the axial length was 35% higher than in normal periods of time, like before the COVID. I put the 35% higher, though this study was 115 subjects. But I saw this number. It's about 30 and 50 something percent along the articles I read. So it's a significant and very worrying number, because if the optometry associations, they predicted the increment of myopia along the years until 2050. This pandemic came like an accelerator for this progression, in my opinion, and I would like to know about your opinion when I finish telling you about this. So with the strategies and the interventions to control the myopia, outdoor activity is actually one of the most impacted aspects by the COVID, but it's also proven to be the safest to control myopia. And studies previous to the pandemic, they showed that there is a relationship about this neurohormone I was telling you about, the melatonin and myopia. So all the ocular structures, they follow a circadian rhythm along the day. It doesn't mean that it have to be pathological, no? Like the axial length changes even if I am a plano person. I have no refractive errors. In the morning, in comparison to night, my axial length is different, and my IOP is different, and all my cells in all my body is they follow a circadian rhythm. They follow the clock, the natural clock in my body. And people with myopia, studies showed that they have a higher melatonin concentration in their serum, in their blood. So one of the things I did before the COVID, before all this pandemic, and after I finished my PhD, is that I wanted to see the ocular development with melatonin, not endogenously produced. Like if I pharmacologically put melatonin and using an animal model, what is going to happen to their eyes? So I started to investigate this in Conway Institute in Dublin. And they use the zebrafish as an animal model for to study the eyes, because it's very easy. In 5 days, you have very totally functional eyes. And I took the zebrafish embryos when they fully developed their vision and everything. I incubated them with melatonin, pharmacologically put to the medium where they are living. And I wanted to see, okay, first, if they are going to die, they are not going to die, the doses, and the toxicity screen. And I adjusted the doses of 100 micromolar of melatonin. I saw that they are fine, nothing happened to them. And I did some sort of a visual acuity test, but for fish. So this is called the optokinetic response. I incubated these fish with melatonin, and I looked to them. I looked at them through the microscope, and I counted the saccadic movement. Like by seconds. And I can't show you this because of the technical problems, but in the video I could see the movements that the fish can move their eyes following the black and white strike. Okay. And so you have a baseline, and whatever pharmacology you are doing, or whatever experiment you are doing, you can compare to the baseline. So I know that these can follow they can see the light, they can see the stripes, they can see the color, the black and white, and I can count this. So what happened when I incubated this fish in melatonin, is that they had less visual acuity. They were, I don't know, I mean, I cannot know if they are myopes or hyperopes, or they have astigmatism, or they have whatever problem it is, because I cannot do retinoscopy. but I could measure their visual acuity with this optokinetic response, and I saw that when I put this neurohormone in their media and they sleep with this as if they are in darkness, they see less. So I sacrificed these zebrafish and I measured their axial length, and I saw that between the control and melatonin treated zebrafishes, the melatonin treated, they had huge eyes in comparison to the control ones. And this is exactly what happens when scientists try to study myopia progression, and they rear animals in total darkness with no circadian rhythm. They put them in a total darkness, no sunlight, no nothing. Their eyes and the clock genes in their eyes, they go crazy, and the eye develop an axial myopia. So this goes in the same line with what is actually happening with the pandemic, with all the environmental factors we are facing about the indoor activities more than the outdoor activities. And as you all know, this is important because pharmacologically speaking, I'd like to know about your feedback about this atropine eye drops. I'm not sure if this is used in Saudi Arabia. I would really appreciate your feedback. But all the pharmacologists and basic scientists, they studied atropine as via to control myopia, and they don't think that it's exclusively through the muscarinic receptors. I don't know if you, I don't want to go deeply into the basic science, but atropine mainly work through the muscarinic receptors. But they saw that in the eye, atropine it modifies the retinal dopamine levels. So there is another hypothesis, it's not totally proven yet, that even the pharmacologically tested, not proven in the US, but many places in Asia use atropine to control myopia. They don't think that it's because it works the classical pathway. It have to do with the dopamine receptors, with the dopamine in the amacrine cells, with the melatonin, because there is a relationship between dopamine and melatonin, and all of these signals, they go through our eyes to the brain, and they stimulate certain areas like the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain, which have to do with our clock genes. It doesn't have to be to do with the image forming receptors. This is why I always insist in that okay, the eye is our organ of vision, but it's not only about the vision. No, it's the window to the outside, and we have some photoreceptors, though they are not rod and cones. They are non-image forming photoreceptors, because the melanopsin and melatonin and dopamine, they all go together, and they send signals to our brain, but to other areas which have nothing to do with the vision per se. But they participate in the development of the eye, because we are born with 17 millimeter of an eye, and it can get to 23 millimeter. No, so these small changes in the choroidal thickness and the axial length and in the power of the cornea, they are all controlled by small mechanisms, and all these mechanisms are very important timingly, like through the day, to be developed in the correct way to be able to see 2020. No, which is it's actually our job, no, to make people see 2020. Regarding the atropine adverse effect, I don't know if in Saudi Arabia we use this for the control of myopia, but all of you know that it's a cyclo. Being a cyclo, it will generate the photophobia, the blurred near vision. All of us, we know all of that. But the most important thing for me in this speech is the exposed retina to the blue light or to the ultraviolet light, because I'm trying to tell you guys that outdoor light is very important to control myopia and to develop a healthy vision for children. But I'm not saying at any moment is that you have to go in the midday outside playing with your children in order for their eyes to be willingly developed. We always have to protect our eyes. And in the scheme I show you about the lux intensity of light, you can see that near the window light is 1,000 times more than an office light. So this is a very significant difference to highlight the importance of the sunlight. I mean, ربي خلق الشمس وبناء على الشمس تمضي الحياة ولا. This is it for me to highlight and to pick your minds. And I just want to ask you about what do you think about our role as optometrists in all of this, like an advice, the visual hygiene during near work. Now, fortunately, we are not in lockdown. We are on-site students and workers and optometrists, and we have patients and all these things. And hopefully, and I believe personally, is that if things goes to normality, things can get into control, because we spent more than 1.5 years with this abnormal lifestyle. But we can emphasize on outdoor activity, because there are studies which impacted me, to be honest. I didn't think that it's as important as what I saw in the studies, is that an additional 40 minutes of outdoor time per day would achieve 23% reduction in the incidence of myopia. And I think that this is a huge percentage. I mean, it seems like a dream. But it's proven. I was reading these articles very carefully, and I believe in them. And I would ask you all, as optometrists, parents, friends, as any role you are doing, just go outside, use the sunglasses to protect your eyes from the UV light. But go outside, enjoy the sun. The sun is life, because there is no life with no sunlight. and apparently even for our visual health, it's essential. And that's it for me. And thank you so much if you are listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Hanan. Thank you for this interesting presentation. Actually, myopia subject is very close to me. I love this subject. And I do believe the other optometrists too. For me, actually, I have many questions, but let's start with the audience. Mr. Khan, if I corrected let's say Mr. Khan, the mic is with you. Let me allow you to. Okay. I think Mr. Khan have questions. He has questions. If you can allow them. Okay, let's go to the chat. I think, let's say, there's a many question if you can see.
Second.
Okay.
I'm reading the Dr. Mut'ab Al-Anazi.
Okay. I think now Mr. Khan, he can able to talk now. You can talk, yeah? Okay. Okay, who's else have another questions? Okay, Dr. Hanan, go ahead with the chat, with the Dr. Mut'ab.
Okay. دكتور متعب يعطيك ألف عافية و good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Do you think factors such as age of participants, how myopia was defined, how refractive error was measured, have these factors been looked at to explain the difference of أيوة بالضبط تماما. أنا حطيت اللي هي أول شيء لأنه يعني it's impactful بالنسبة لي، لأنه ما أدري إذا أنت لك كثير في موضوع الميوبيا كنترول والبريفالنس في ايجيا، في ماليزيا، تشاينا، كوريا، البريفالنس مرة هاير ذان يوروب وميدل ايست ان جنرال وذا ستيتس. فأنا لما شفت إنه في 33% أو لا كان حتى 22% الإكسبكتد في 2020 وشفت السعودية هذا الستدي، حطيته صدق مش عشان الميثودولوجي والنمبر والايج، لاني انا يعني بعد هذه السلايد كل اللي انا حطيتهم كانوا سكول ايج بارتيسيبنتس، بس هذه كانت ادلتس ما سووا لهم سايكلو طبعا، سووا لهم اوتوريف واعتقد ريتينوسكوبي، وبس انه كان هيوج نمبر. يعني الان ما يحضرني كم السامبل نمبر، بس كان نمبر كبير. يعني I considered يعني study مرة significant انه احطها اوكي see people ترى احنا عندنا prevalence مرة كبيرة. يعني أنا لما كنت في 5 ابتدائي بدأت ألبس نظارة، بس نظري من 5 ابتدائي إلى 3 متوسط تغير significantly. وهذا السبب اللي أنا خلاني بعدين أركز بس على determined age يعني من ال studies ال published. بس هذه حطيتها لأن هذه تقريبا الخلاصة، ولا يعني في عدد كبير، الميثودولوجي كانت جيدة، وأقدر أقول إنه والله في study done في سعودي أرابيا which is actually يعني سعودي أرابيا ما كانت سعودي أرابيا كل سعودي أرابيا، ما هي ملتي سنتر، هي فقط في الرياض الستدي، والبريفالنس يعني مرة كبيرة تعتبر. it's alarming more than to say okay 40 something%. لا هو just to highlight الimportance.
Thank you, Doctor. I just have one thing to say, if my voice is clear.
Yes, it is.
So because I read in the studies and I've seen how different the protocols from one study to another that could explain the variability in the prevalence. So I just want to mention that to be aware of this. And I know that myopia prevalence is increasing in Saudi as well, but I wanted to kind of make sure that this factor, because they're very important, they can change the prevalence from being high to low. And if you compare the prevalence from here to Saudi Arabia, we have very limited studies compared to the one in China, because in China, they do a lot of studies. In the United States, it's similar. I think we need to have more studies here, kind of exploring the prevalence of myopia and refractive error in general, age specific, and also with the standards. Now, the definition I've seen in one of the studies that define myopia with -3 and worse. That's not acceptable, I think, because the definition of myopia is a spherical equivalent of -0.5 and worse. So you can see that how they define myopia can also affect the prevalence. So I just want to have this point and question. Thank you very much for the interesting presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Mut'ab. I totally agree with you. To be honest, from a personal point of view, when I was looking at these studies and the publications, I deliberately put the screenshots of the publications because I want to excite people in this speech to do more. You know what I mean? I want them to say, okay, Chinese people, they have all this information, and we were stuck in the COVID thinking about our health and all these things, and we didn't stop to see things. And I would like to know about the practitioners, the optometrists in clinics, in day-to-day clinics, if they notice the differences and the prevalence, and they notice that if they have 20 patients a day, most of them are myopes, and that this needs to be studied.
Thank you, Dr. Hanan. Just a reminder, نرجو التذكير إنه في الرابط. Please register in the link that I just sent it in the chat لتجي الساعات في الهيئة. يعطيك العافية دكتور حنان. I think Dr. Majid, he has a question. Go ahead, Dr. Majid.
طيب يعطيك العافية دكتورة حنان. صراحة very interesting and informative presentation. يعني I can say دسم. يعني إضافة إلى additionally to what Dr. Mut'ab said, there is a variation in studies in Saudi Arabia. I did a meta-analysis about and pool analysis for these studies in Saudi Arabia. In all studies that mention myopia in Saudi Arabia, and I found that the prevalence after the meta-analysis, after the analysis, the prevalence of all studies in general in Saudi Arabia of myopia was 37%.
Wow.
But interestingly, when I exclude the studies have been done on medical students, this percentage dropped to 17%. So this actually lighting a question in my head. There is another environmental factors, not only genetics or something related to ethnicity or something like that. وبس يعطيكم العافية وشكرا لك دكتورة حنان على هذا العرض الممتاز والرائع.
الله يعافيك. أتمنى إنه يعني دسم in a good point of view، لأنه يعني في رمضان الواحد ما وده يعني يدسم عليكم الأمسية.
يعطيك العافية دكتور حنان. We have a question here from Mahsa Anizi. He asked about the criteria. If we have criteria for myopia control in Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm. So this is actually my question for the audience. I didn't work in the clinic to control myopia, and I saw that to control myopia they have the multifocal lenses and the atropine. I wonder if Saudi Arabia they use the atropine to control myopia. I would really appreciate if someone in the audience can answer this question, because I actually had this for you guys. متعب العنزي. أيوة دكتور please.
السلام عليكم. To answer this question, I looked into the protocol in Saudi Arabia. First, I was very interested to start adopting myopia control protocols in Saudi Arabia, as I saw in the US and other countries. The problem here, before I started, like, okay, I wanted to do, for example, those kind of treatment. The problem was we don't know where we are. And we started, now we're collected about 200 response from optometrists, practicing optometrists in Saudi Arabia about about 4 points. We talked about how often they prescribe myopia control strategies. If they know what those strategies, if they educate their patients about myopia control and myopia conditions. All these, we did a survey to kind of know where we are in Saudi Arabia, and we collected about 200 responses. Right now, we just finished the data analysis to show how much of percentage of optometrists right now in Saudi Arabia that prescribing myopia control. There is a lot of factors that limit the myopia implementation of myopia control treatments in Saudi. Could be to the availability of the treatment. For example, we don't have a low dose atropine here in Saudi. Also, we don't have very, very limited optometrists are experienced with orthokeratology, and orthokeratology are classified to be one of the most effective treatments against myopia. So there are a lot of factors, and we are planning to share all the response and all this information in the this year conference, the Saudi the optometry conference this year. So we'll be able to show you the factors and the treatments and everything that's related to myopia control practice in Saudi Arabia to have more information. I think that's very important to establish first, and then we can talk about what kind of treatment that we can implement in our practices. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you very much.
Dr. Mit'ab,
Yes.
do you have any idea if actually people in Saudi Arabia are doing ortho-K? Because I know I was in contact with Paragon like in 2017 or something like that, and they started to have the distributor in Saudi Arabia, but then I have no idea. I mean, I don't know anyone, to be honest, who practices, because I know that in National Guard for Riyadh, there is Dr. Mansour, who is accredited and certified to do the ortho-K, but I don't know if he does that, and if we have if we can prescribe this. There is a distributor in Saudi Arabia for this.
Based on the results that we got from the survey, there are very limited number of optometrists that are actually providing or working with orthocare for myopia control. And that could be the limitation of knowledge, experience, or could be the limitation of the availability of the treatment. But I can say it's a very limited number, less than 10 or 5% of the people who responded to this survey.
Okay. Gracias. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mut'ab. I do believe actually Dr. Mansour, he did the Paragon for Ortho-K,
Yeah.
but I think so.
Yeah, no, because they have it's actually it's a published data. This is why I know about his name, because
Okay. No,
yeah, you can get into the Paragon webpage and you just select the region, the country, and you can see the certified people. And at that moment, I only saw that Dr. Mansour Al-Haras is the only one who was certified.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I know him actually in person, so he did. Yeah,
I know him, but since like ages ago.
Okay. For me, Dr. Hanan, I have a first question.
Yeah.
Actually هو شوية تطفلي أمانة لكن I want to know the result actually and what in the first of presentation you mentioned about research that you just said in Asir region it's a high risk of myopia, if I understand correctly.
It's actually no, it's the contrary. What I saw is that في article published بمش عسير جيزان specifically.
Okay.
The percentage was 17% myopia, but it was 20 important thing.
Doctor, can you remember who's the author?
Yeah. I can get that. This was like very important for me because I was looking for the data about the urban and rural lifestyle. And for me, I mean, it's a little bit judgmental, but in Jizan, I thought that it's rural. ثواني إنجازان طارق البهاوي محمد صالح محفوظ مهند فيصل تبايغي. I think that these people are ophthalmologists, they are not optometrists.
Yeah, actually they are two physicians, not ophthalmologists, and one medical student.
اسبرا لا دقيقة في study
Yes.
هنا في حتى رنا الشايع my dear friend. لا هذه في الرياض. في differences. أنا ما يعني الستاديز حقت الميوبيا والرefractive errors in general. لو لاحظتوا أنتوا تقرأوا الارticles there are huge differences when they are ophthalmologists or they are optometrists.
Yeah.
I mean regarding the methodology, because I think that each one just goes to their territory, which is a normal thing to do. فهنا هذول حقين جيزان 2018 ما أعرف الكولكشن حق الداتا في أي تاريخ كان، لكن كان هايبروبيا more than myopia. perhaps هذا بس أنا يعني speculative لأنهم outdoor most of the time. ما أعرف، أنا ما عشت في جيزان عشان أحكم، يعني ما عندي أي خلفية. لكن أعتقد rural places are
لا ما في واحد outdoor، في شمس قوية هناك.
أعتقد يعني أنا من الجنوب على فكرة، لكن ما عندي أي خلفية عن اللايف ستايل يعني.
Yes, that's what I want to ask a question. What is the main factor that give I do
أنا
I
أعتقد شوفي أستاذة آيات، أنا أعتقد in my point of view هو multifactorial. يعني أنت ما تقدري تاخذي إحنا عندنا very very good luck إنه إحنا concerned about one organ very external. يعني ما قاعدين ندرس إحنا قلب جوا جسم البني آدم. الآي هي جزء من البرين actually.
yeah from your point of view what do you think?
Yes, أنا أعتقد إنه الرورال لايف ستايل برو هايبروبيا أكثر من مايوبيا، لأنه they are outside more. كذا هذا خيالي، ما عندي أي يعني هذا جدا speculative. بس مثلا من الحياة العلمية والعملية والحياة كذا بشكل عام، أنا أشوف إنه الناس اللي يعيشوا في قرى independently of the education، اللي يعيشوا في قرى يطلعوا للشارع أكثر، في security أكثر. فتقدر يروحوا يلعبوا كورة برا في الساحة، مش عارف إيش، يروحوا مع أصحابهم للمدرسة. وأعتقد إنه اللايت الداي لايت مرة effective بالنسبة لهم، لأنه السنلايت to be honest في لايت ثيرابي. البيبيات اللي ينولدوا ويحطوهم في الانكوبيتر لما يقولوا البيبي عنده صفار ما طلع من المستشفى، هذا ليه؟ هذا لايت ثيرابي to regulate the melatonin response and the circadian rhythm، لأنه circadian rhythm هو اللي ينظم الانزيمز حقة الكبد اللي تخلي البيبي عينه صفرة ولونه أصفر كأنه جزرة. أنا هذا البوينت اوف فيو حقي، بس أنا الاريا حقي من
باي ذا واي يعني في دراسة أيضا يمكن in 2018، عشان كذا أنا سألتك عن الأوثرز. سويناه على طلاب المدارس في جيزان. كان عندنا 17 the prevalence of myopia 17%, but hyperopia is around 25% or 24%.
دكتور ماجد this study دكتور ماجد، أنا ما في لا شفت it must be this study.
لا I'm pretty sure the names you mentioned not they were not in this study. لكن بالعموم يعني interestingly يعني maybe we can say lifestyle يعني، لكن ما أعرف we cannot say إنه يعني ما أعرف يعني تحتاج إلى إعادة دراسة من جديد يعني قد يكون
يعني. لكن إذا أنت دكتور سويت هذه الدراسة وطلع التندنسي مقاربة الأساتذة الثانيين سووه، معناها this is supportive ولا ما يحتاج لها دراسة؟
أنا شفت، أنا الآن قرأت سؤال في الشات وانتبهت له من رفا الشريف، هي كانت معنا في نفس الدراسة هذه.
رفا الشريف دكتور ماجد داتا اللي ما توافق الدراسة. أوكي.
فنعم هي كانت معنا في الدراسة هذه.
معليش مين ناصر الشاملي؟
ناصر الشمالي، هذا زميلة ناصر الشمالي من عمان.
أيوة. إن البدو عندهم مشاكل إبصار أقل من سكان المدن. What do you think about that دكتور ماجد؟
شيء طبيعي طبعا. في يعني ميني ميكانيزم أو يعني proposed mechanism to explain this. في واحدة منها موضوع الدوبامين، والدوبامين هذا موضوع طويل جدا وفي a lot of discussions. واحد منها أيضا موضوع الفيوينج ديستانس، اللي هو إنه يكون العين ريلاكس لما تشوف على البعيد وتكون مرتاحة تماما وما إلى ذلك. في واحدة من الميكانيزم المتوقعة إنه موضوع مستوى level of vitamin D. A lot of actually it is debatable. يعني موضوع يعني في نقاش كبير، وكل واحدة ممكن قابلة يعني للقبول أو الرفض، وكل واحدة فيها دراسات سابقة تمت على هذا الأساس وهذا الموضوع. في الدكتور سيف رافع عيدو، تفضل دكتور سيف.
Thank you, Dr. Hanan, for your nice and informative presentations. Just I need to comment about variations of reported prevalence of myopia in our regions. Yes, I think this difference in prevalence of myopia or hyperop in our region may be due to the threshold used to define the refractive error. Some define, for example, myopia more than 0.5, and others define myopia more than 0.75. And also some study is conducted without cycloplegia, and some study conducted with cycloplegia. And also the vision threshold also difference in many of the study. For that, if we look to some study conducted in our regions, you find there is difference in prevalence of myop and hyperop. In many studies, yes, conducted without cycloplegia, you can find maybe high prevalence of myopia and low prevalence of hyperopia. And some study when conducted with cycloplegia, you find maybe the prevalence of hyperopia is slightly high than myopia. Yes, all this inconsistency in the data is due to, yes, a difference in protocol. WHO developed the protocol called refractive error study in children. I think is a very nice protocol. If you follow this protocol, yes, have a specific threshold for definitions of myopia or definitions of the card to use to to examine VA or to examine the refractive error. It's very interesting protocol. If anyone need to conduct a study according to refractive error study in children, if you use this protocol, I think is very nice, and we can get some similarity in the result. Thank you for this nice lecture, Dr. Hanan.
Thank you so much. دكتور سيف، أنا جدا آسفة. دكتور سيف تتكلم عربي ولا؟ أنت دكتور سيف اللي معانا في القصيم.
نعم بتكلم عربي.
الله ينعم عليك. Actually, I just want to ask you for my so many sorries because I couldn't hear all the comments. The voice was not very clear. But لا sorry، أنا مرة جدا آسفة، ما اتضح لي مرة الصوت. قاعدة أحاول إنه to grab the questions و I was unable. بس يبدو لي إنه you are mentioning الميثودولوجي، لا اللي هو الكرايتيريا و how they took things and this made the differences. بس correct this if I am wrong. هو هذا اللي قصدك إنه؟
Yes، نعم. Yes، أنا بقصد في بعض الدراسة بتاخد yes difference methodology. Yes,
طبعاً.
This may be yes give.
Yeah، طبعاً. دكتور سيف، I'm very very well aware إنه هذه اسمها أمسية رمضانية. Okay. It's for me it's a chit chat among colleagues to interchange the experience and the opinions we have either regarding reading articles or doing or seeing patients with the problems I'm highlighting. فأنا بالنسبة لي وأنا قاعدة أحضر المحاضرة I saw some curiosities. ماني قاعدة، أنا ما قاعدة this is not a study to publish to follow the criteria blah blah, but I think is that it's worth it to highlight the importance of some numbers. Either these numbers are comparable in all the regions in Saudi Arabia. I'm not only talking about Saudi Arabia, but I think that it's very important because we are the Saudi Association of Optometry, no? So this is like it's the least we can do, because we are trying to make a better vision in Saudi Arabia and visual health. بس أنا حقيقة as a researcher, as an investigator, as an academician, I have all the doubts or questions you are raising now. And بالنسبة لي, these are highlights to put them like, okay, please, there is a red light in this area, in that area. What do you think as a practitioner? What do you think as a professor? What do you think as a patient? It's not my main concern is not about the methodology, and I think that it's significant enough, the numbers, even though there are differences with the cyclo, no cyclo, the number of patients, no numbers, the ages, the dates, and all these things. I totally agree with you.
Thank you, Dr. Hanan. Now we finished for today, and I just want to remind you, all of you, about the lecture tomorrow at the same time, 10:30, مع الدكتور متعب إن شاء الله. وأيضا نشكر الجمعية السعودية للبصريات ومجلس البصريات بدول الشرق الأوسط على هذا التنظيم وعلى هذا، وشكرا جزيلا. وبإذن الله نلقاكم غدا. يعطيك العافية دكتور حنان، كفيتي ووفيتي. شكرا جزيلا لك.
كل الشكر لك يا أستاذة آيات، يعطيك ألف عافية. I really want to thank you. يعني على قدم من وساق مع دكتور ماجد.
الله يسعدك، شكرا جزيلا لك، ونلقاكم بإذن الله غدا. في أمان الله.
أمان الله.